In the year 1989, something really strange went down at a national park in Japan. It all started when two guys mysteriously vanished and the search mission swung into action. They scoured the surroundings of Mount Asa-hidake, even going as far as bringing in a helicopter to search from above. By the time the day was coming to an end, the search team had to accept the harsh truth that their whole operation had been a flop. But then, just when they thought all hope was lost, something caught their attention. They actually spotted an SOS signal down below out of the corner of their eye. Hi folks, I'm Johnny and welcome to The Oddest. This is one of those mysteries that have been puzzling investigators for the longest time. On the surface, it might seem like a straightforward missing persons case, but as we'll find out, there's a crazy twist to this story. So let's get into it. Japan consists of 4 main islands, and the one in the north is called Hokkaido. On Hokkaido, there's this incredible national park called Daizetsuzan, which has earned the nickname Playground of the Gods. This is because the park is filled with majestic mountains that reach up so high they seem to touch the clouds. The tallest mountain within this park is called Mount Asa-hidake, which towers over 7,500 feet high. It's a super popular spot for hiking enthusiasts. The trail leading to the summit of Mount Asa-hidake is generally considered quite straightforward. It's like a straight line with one tricky section along the way. See, as you approach the summit, the trees start to vanish and you're left with an open landscape where the trail becomes a bit more unclear. It gets tricky to figure out which way to go. That's when the hikers are advised to watch out for a special landmark called Safe Rock, a big square boulder. Once you reach Safe Rock, apparently the rest of the trail becomes easier to spot and follow all the way up to the summit. But here's the thing, in that same area there's another large square boulder that looks just like Safe Rock, but it's fake, and they call it False Safe Rock. If a hiker mistakes False Safe Rock for the real one and takes the path leading away from it, well, they'll end up on a route that many people have gotten lost on. At first it might seem like you're making progress towards the mountain summit, but gradually the trail starts to slope back downhill. You'd think that's a clear warning sign when the trail goes down whilst you're trying to reach the summit. Something must have gone wrong, right? But put yourself in the shoes though of someone who has made this mistake. In their mind, they've reached the landmark of Safe Rock. Even though it was actually the imposter, False Safe Rock, they believe that they are on the right path, especially if it's their first time on that mountain, like many people. They convince themselves that they've taken the correct route and they continue onward. If you keep going without realising your mistake, about a mile away from False Safe Rock, you enter a valley that's completely overgrown with thick bamboo. It's swampy and there are steep cliff drop-offs at each side. Once you're inside this area, visibility becomes nearly impossible due to the tall and dense bamboo. It's incredibly easy to become disorientated and accidentally walk off a cliff. Over the years, hikers who have unintentionally taken the trail leading away from False Safe Rock have become lost in this dangerous area. Sadly, not all of them have made it back. In July of 1989, 2 guys from Tokyo embarked on a hike up the trail towards the top of Mount Asa-hidake. When they arrived at what they thought was Safe Rock, well, obviously it turned out to be the imposter, False Safe Rock. Unaware of their mistake, they followed the trail leading away from False Safe Rock down into the bamboo. Before long, they found themselves lost in the valley. That night when these 2 men didn't return home, their friends and family grew worried, so they contacted the police and a search operation was initiated to find them. In the first few days of the search, luck evaded them. The 2 guys remained elusive, their whereabouts was a complete mystery. The search team scoured the swampy area thinking that they might be there, but alas, they couldn't locate them. However, everything changed on July 24th. A helicopter took to the skies exploring an area that hadn't been thoroughly examined yet. It hovered over the eastern side of the valley where the dense bamboo grew, expecting to find a trace of them. And then, as the pilot turned a corner, a breathtaking sight unfolded before their very eyes. There, in the middle of a vast clearing on the mountain, were 3 massive letters. They stood tall, crafted with birch logs, spelling out the urgent call for help. S.O.S. S.O.S. is a universal distress signal known worldwide. When people go missing or find themselves stranded, they'll do their best to create an SOS symbol, making it as large as possible. Then they would set up camp nearby, hoping that someone would spot their plea for help and come to the rescue. As the helicopter pilot spotted the distress signal, he flew directly above the letters, expecting to see the two missing hikers from Tokyo. However, as he hovered over the SOS symbol and looked down, he found no one in sight. Despite being in a wide open area, the hikers were just nowhere to be seen. Nevertheless, the pilot alerted the rest of the search party about the discovery, and soon more helicopters and search teams were dispatched to that location. Several hours later, a search team on the ground approximately 2 miles north of this SOS signal caught sight of two dishevelled figures emerging from the thick bamboo brush. It was none other than the missing men from Tokyo. They appeared exhausted and dehydrated and famished, teetering on the edge of survival. However, they were alive, and the relief at being found was obviously overwhelming. A helicopter was called in to airlift them to the nearest hospital, where they received urgent medical care. Fortunately, it was determined that both men would make a full recovery after receiving the necessary treatment. Filled with excitement, the pilot and some of the other rescuers eagerly visited the men in their hospital room. During their conversation, the pilot commended the two guys for their cleverness in constructing the SOS signal. He explained that without it, it would have been highly unlikely for anyone to ever have found them. However, upon hearing this, the two men exchanged glances, their expressions turning puzzled. They turned to the pilot and said, "SOS signal? We didn't create an SOS signal." After thoroughly questioning the men to confirm their lack of involvement in creating this SOS signal, the pilot and the search team came to a startling realization. They concluded that someone else must have constructed that signal and needed urgent assistance. Driven by a sense of duty, the searchers decided to return to the mountain and head back to the SOS signal. Early the next morning, they set out once again, determined to comb the area with renewed determination. As they resumed their search, one of the team members made a significant discovery. They stumbled upon a deep hole which was concealed beneath a tree root. Inside the hole they found a backpack containing various items. Among them were a driver's license and an audio recorder. The license belonged to a 25-year-old Japanese man named Kenji Iwamura. Astonishingly, it was revealed that 5 years prior, Kenji had been staying at a lodge near the mountain. On his departure, he had informed the lodge owner of his intention to hike to the summit of Mount Asa-hidake. A couple of days later, when the time came for Kenji to check out of the lodge, he didn't show up. Concerned, the owner went to his room and knocked, but there was no response. Using a master key, the owner entered the room only to find it empty. All of Kenji's belongings were still in there, which struck the owner as odd. The last time he had seen Kenji was when he was heading out for the hike. Putting the pieces together, the owner grew worried and immediately contacted the police to report Kenji missing. Back then, a search operation was launched, but Kenji was never found, leaving behind a lingering mystery that surrounded his disappearance. Now, fast forward to 1989, as the searchers examined the backpack and the license. One of them reached inside and discovered an audio recorder. Curiosity compelled them to press play, and what they heard was deeply unsettling. It was the voice of a distressed young man, presumably Kenji, desperately calling out for help in Japanese. "I'm stuck on a cliff. I can't move. SOS, please help me. I'm at the spot where I first saw the helicopter, but the bamboo is too thick. I can't move. Please lift me up out of here. SOS." Here's a clip of the actual recording. At this point, the police found it evident that Kenji was the one that constructed the SOS sign. The proximity of the backpack to the SOS letters, along with the recording featuring Kenji audibly saying SOS, strongly suggested his involvement. It was believed that Kenji had built the sign back in 1984 when he initially went missing. Now that the police believed they had unravelled the mystery of this SOS sign's creator, their focus shifted to uncovering Kenji's whereabouts. They needed to figure out what happened to him. Over the next few hours, the searchers intensified their efforts in the immediate vicinity of where the backpack was discovered, and soon enough, a breakthrough occurred. According to the police, they unearthed a crucial piece of information that solved the mystery surrounding Kenji's 5-year-old disappearance. They finally uncovered the truth about what happened to Kenji. In 1984, Kenji left his lodge with the intention of reaching the summit of Mount Asa-hidake. During his ascent, it is highly likely that he made the same mistake as the two men from Tokyo would do 5 years later. Kenji probably confused the false safe rock for the real safe rock and unknowingly went down the wrong path. At a certain point, Kenji abandoned his attempts to find his way back to the trail and instead decided to descend the mountain by any means possible. As he pushed through the dense vegetation and bamboo, he eventually reached a spot where he lowered himself down over a ledge and landed on a cliff. Looking over the edge, he realised that he couldn't proceed further due to the steep and treacherous terrain. When he turned around to climb back up, he found that the ascent was just as equally as challenging and impassable. Kenji found himself trapped on that ledge, with no escape. There, on that cliff ledge, he sat and waited, hoping that someone had reported him missing and that a rescue party would come to his aid before it was too late. During his wait, a helicopter flew overhead, and Kenji's hopes likely soared. He believed they had spotted him and that rescue was imminent. However, the helicopter eventually departed without giving any indication of whether they had actually seen him. Over the next couple of days, Kenji remained on that ledge, still anticipating the hopeful return of the helicopter. As time passed, he slowly came to the disheartening realisation that the helicopter hadn't seen him and that there was no rescue party coming. During that moment of realisation, Kenji retrieved the audio recorder and recorded a haunting message, desperately calling out for help and expressing his predicament on the ledge. After recording the message, Kenji reached the conclusion that his best chance of survival lay not in waiting for a potentially unlikely helicopter rescue. Instead, he decided to take the daring step of climbing down the perilous cliff right in front of him, despite knowing how dangerous and deadly it was. To his amazement and against all odds, Kenji managed to descend the cliff without suffering any significant injuries. Once he reached the bottom where the terrain levelled off, he continued onward, walking down the mountain. Pushing through the thick bamboo, he eventually emerged from the bamboo forest and found himself in a vast clearing on the mountainside. This clearing was devoid of any vegetation except for some distant birch trees. It was in this open space that Kenji constructed the SOS signal, believing it was his ticket to be rescued. Sadly, his hopes would be dashed, as the SOS sign did not lead to any salvation. 5 years later, after the searchers had discovered Kenji's backpack hidden beneath these tree roots, a major breakthrough occurred. They made a shocking discovery: a partial human skeleton laying close by. Eventually, through examination, it was confirmed that the skeleton did belong to Kenji. At this point, the police stated that they did not suspect any foul play in Kenji's death. However, they did not disclose the exact cause of his death. It remains unclear whether they were unable to determine or chose not to make it public. Regardless, the case was officially closed by the police, marking the end of this investigation. However, to those who had been closely following the story, especially during the significant events of 1989, it appeared that the police had overlooked a crucial aspect. There was a glaring and perplexing discrepancy that many expected the police to address at some point. It was a matter of utmost importance that couldn't be easily disregarded or ignored. The question on everyone's minds was, how could Kenji have constructed that SOS signal? Now, here's something to think about. Those 3 letters S.O.S. that were discovered on the clearing were no small feat. They were crafted using 19 birch tree logs, which each letter measured a staggering 16 feet in height and 10 feet in width. What's more, these logs appear to have been expertly cut, suggesting the use of an axe or some other cutting tool. Consider this: chopping down a tree with an axe or a hatchet is far more challenging than it may seem. So just imagine the tremendous effort required to chop down 19 trees and then drag those logs several hundred feet away from the actual spot where the signal was built. Now let's add another layer to the equation. Keep in mind that Kenji had been missing in the wilderness already for several days. He would have undoubtedly been dehydrated, famished, exhausted, sore and filled with fear, in the worst physical condition imaginable. Even the fittest and strongest individuals would struggle with such a colossal task. It's almost unthinkable to believe that Kenji, in his weakened state, could have accomplished this feat. During Kenji's autopsy, the coroner concluded that he lacked the physical capability to assemble this SOS sign. He was simply too weak given his condition. However, another perplexing aspect comes into play. No axe or any cutting tool was discovered anywhere near to the SOS sign, or the skeleton, or in the backpack. There was an absence of any tool that could explain how these birch logs were expertly cut. This presents another puzzling dilemma. If Kenji did possess an axe and somehow summoned superhuman strength to chop down 19 trees and then construct the SOS sign, then why didn't the authorities find the axe amongst his belongings, or at the very least in the nearby area? On the other hand, if Kenji did not have an axe, it raises the question of how he was able to cut down these trees. How did the 19 logs end up in that area that was rarely visited by anyone on purpose? The lack of a clear explanation only adds to this mystery that surrounds the circumstances of Kenji's death. When the police remained tight-lipped and evaded these simple questions about the axe and the SOS sign, people started developing their own theories to explain this mystery. The most prevalent theory suggested that Kenji wasn't alone during his ordeal. This theory proposed that he had assistance in constructing the SOS signal, which would explain the daunting task. Furthermore, it would also provide an explanation for the strange reaction of Kenji's family when they heard the audio recording. They claimed that it actually didn't sound like Kenji. Supporters of this additional person theory highlighted another peculiar detail. Initially, the skeleton found was identified as belonging to an unknown female with type O blood. This revelation stirred up a frenzy in the media and the public, leaving the police inundated with questions that they just couldn't answer. Their lack of response made them appear unfavourable in the eyes of the public. The pressure was mounting and the police seemed to be without leads or explanations. However, things took a sudden turn. The police announced that upon re-evaluation, the bones were in fact male and had type A blood, coincidentally matching Kenji's sex and blood type. This convenient clarification attempted to put an end to the confusion and doubts surrounding the identity of the skeleton. In some circles, there is speculation that the police's sudden explanation about the bones being Kenji's and the dismissal of the additional person theory was a deliberate fabrication. It is believed that the police concocted this story conveniently to tie up all those loose ends of a very poorly handled case. Skeptics argue that these bones do not belong to Kenji, and that he may still be out there somewhere, undiscovered. Instead, they propose that the bones actually belong to an unidentified female with type O blood, supporting the additional person theory. However, despite the plausibility of this alternate theory, it is highly unlikely that the authorities will ever seriously consider it. The case has been officially closed, and further investigation is unlikely to be pursued. Thus, the truth surrounding Kenji's fate and the identity of the bones may forever be a mystery. As of now, the one thing that we can all agree on is that the SOS sign on that mountainside played a crucial role in saving the lives of two men from Tokyo back in 1989. However, the identity of the sign builder or builders and what ultimately happened to them, well, that remains a mystery. That's it for this story, folks. Thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me during this video. Stay safe out there, tell someone that you love them, and remember, as always, keep smiling.